Welcome to the Action Network podcast. I'm your host, Chris Raybon, and this is your NFL Week 2 betting preview. Today, of course, we'll build our Sunday six-pack of best bets with the help of my co-host, the Prime Minister of Degenerate Nation, Stuck. How you feeling? I know we're both pouring one out for the Panthers in Week 1, and maybe for the season, but how you feeling?
It was an interesting Week 1. The couple bad beats that we got out of the way. I mean, I was disappointed that the Seahawks pushed on the number that we gave out for the Sunday six-pack. They should have won that game by like 2-3 touchdowns. They gave two safeties in the first half. It was ridiculous how that game went. And then Bo Nix goes down the field and gets in the back door. Tennessee not covering without allowing. They're up 17-0. Don't allow an offensive touchdown and don't cover plus 4.5. That's like a once in a 20-year event that happened. So glad to get that out of the way. And then I had my Cowboys Browns under. I lost that on a final drive, meaningless drive where the Browns were going hurry up, converted like a 4th and 8, and then scored a touchdown in the final 20 seconds for no reason. So a couple bad beats, but I passed on a couple overs. I talked about Houston, Indy, and the Washington over, which was disappointing. But I have to say that I will say I did get lucky on the Green Bay Ravens tease because the Eagles fumbled the snap at the 1. So you got to remember the times where things go your way. But I will say I deserved all for all the bad beats that I had, all deserved for the Panthers call. I told our producer, Matt Mitchell, to start scrubbing episodes from the summer. Anytime I mention the Panthers, we'll get to that. But it's good to be back in the flow, fully immersed in the grind. As always, last week was last week. We're on to this week. But the Titans, man, that'll be the worst beat of the year probably.
I mean, I'll have that picture seared in my head of Will Levis on his knees, not because he's kneeling down to end the game, but because he just threw a crippling pick six, and he's not even chasing the guy. It's like you might as well just go get injure yourself, like for all that, and try to chase him down or something, and just get on with Mason Rudolph, because that was bad, man. But like you said, on to the next. We'll start it out with Thursday Night Football. We got a good one this week, so curious to see if you're betting on this one at all. I know you usually like to stay away, but you did go with the Ravens tease last week to open the year. This one is Buffalo at Miami. The Dolphins favored by 2 points. The total is 49. And I'll start by saying I did play this under at 51. This is an under that I tend to play every year because they tend to schedule the Bills going to Miami early in the year every year. It's happened a couple of times already in the recent past. And it just tends to be like a humid, hot game is on the hotter side. It will be a night game, so it won't be quite as, the sun won't be doing anything. But yeah, it's going to be humid. It's kind of a slog. And I don't think, it's week 2, so I don't think people realize that can kind of negatively impact point scoring, especially when you saw Buffalo have a pretty high scoring game. I know Miami was kind of disappointing. Talk about a bad beat. Almost lost the Jags too. Could have gone up 24-7, and I had to sweat that out. So yeah, it was
that 4th and 1 play call was something. They just were melting down after Etienne fumbled.
Yeah, it's like the one thing about betting I feel like is you start to realize exactly when guys are gonna melt down before it happens. Like even something as simple as, because like I'm high on the Broncos this year. So like I was kind of hoping once they got up that they would just win the game. I mean, I know it would have gone against our six-pack, but I have their over win total. But the minute I saw Bo Nix dropping back and throwing that ball to the corner, I was like, he's gonna throw a pick right here. They're not even gonna get a field goal. And sure enough, like it's just, you could see these things coming. The Jags, the minute they fumbled, I'm like, this is a explosive to Tyreek or Waddle. Like it's just, you can just kind of see these things coming. The Titans, I mean, that was just more of a slow undoing. But anyway, primetime unders, we always talk about that. 156, 106, and 360% since 2019. And then totals.
Maybe this is the comeback. 4-0 primetime overs.
Yeah, I know. So far, that's exactly. I mean, that just makes me like the under even better because to open the year, sometimes I feel like the books actually like when people hit a few overs, a bunch of favorites cover because it kind of sets the tone for the rest of the year, and more underdogs and unders tend to cover by the time the year's over. But totals above 49, primetime or not, over the past 3 seasons. Or 2 seasons and change, I should say, 40 and 16 to the under. Over the past 3 seasons, 77 and 48 to the under, so 62%. And I just think that this game, after we saw Miami kind of, their offense they still got talent, but HN and Mostert banged up a little bit. Both were kind of in and out of the game with injuries. It's a short week. It's going to be hot. It's going to be humid. The Bills score looked a little bit inflated because you had a kick return for a touchdown by the Arizona Cardinals. I think Josh Allen and that offense are still going to be run heavy. It looks like, I think he only attempted 23 passes against a horrible Cardinal pass defense. He did complete 18 of them. I do think Miami's pass defense is better than that. And I actually like what I saw, from Miami's defense. I know Jacksonville did have some meltdowns, and so they could have, given up 24 instead of 17, but the Miami kicker looked a little shaky. He had one complete just yips kind of whiff. He still won the game, but a lot of things. And then we know the Buffalo kicker from the playoffs last year, shaky as well. So a lot of things I think kind of point to the under still, but it's down to 49. I think that's about right. So no real play for me at this number, but I did play 51. And if it's anything over 49 and a half or up, I still go that way, but I think 51 was the number to get. What do you think about this one?
Well, one, no one cares about the number that you got that is no longer available. But I'm just messing with you. I like the Dolphins here. I don't love Thursday Night Football. I'll probably be on it small. Want to wait for the injury report. Mostert got ruled out. HM was practicing today. We'll see if he goes. They still have capable backs if he can. You got Wright, Wilson there, but HN is important, I think, in this game for his explosive run ability. The Bills' run defense looked pretty weak last week against the Cardinals, and this Bills defense, I just don't know how they're going to slow down the Dolphins. I think this Bills defense can take a big step back this year. And now you already lost Matt Milano. You lost both your safeties. And now you lost one of the best nickels in all of football, in Teron Johnson, who will be out for a bit. That's a huge loss. So now all these guys like Milano. So instead you have like Dorian Williams in there. Not good. You're going to have Cam Lewis in there more. Rapp and Hamlin at safety. And in the past, the Bills run more of a zone-heavy defense. And by the way, Waddle and Hill against zone defenses probably 1 and 2 in the NFL at their wide receiver position. I mean, just how much can Russo do? I think the corners played well. I mean, Bedford and Douglas are great, but they're going to just eat over the middle of the field where the Bills are so weak now at linebacker, safety, and nickel. So I think there's going to be explosive runs.
Yeah.
I think that the Dolphins are going to be able to move the ball much easier than the Bills. Josh Allen was tremendous last week, and he's going to put up a hell of a fight here. The humidity, I think, does favor the Dolphins a bit early in the season on a short week especially. But, yeah, just what the Bills have lost. Now that Milano and Johnson have gone down, in addition to their safety situation, I think the Dolphins are going to be able to take advantage. I want to see if Ramsey plays too, but I was pretty impressed with the Dolphins' defense overall last week. I know that the Jags could have went up 24-7, but Jalen Phillips was back, surprisingly. And he looked good. I didn't think he was going to look that good this quickly. But Calais Campbell, still ageless in there, who I think helps. And Fuller played well. So some of their new additions, I think, are a hit. The offensive line, still questions at guard, but their tackles are pretty solid. And that's important against the Bills because what the Bills have to do is you got to get pressure quick on Tua here. Russo and Epinesa, but the depth isn't great there, which is concerning on a short week in humidity. So, yeah, I think that the Dolphins are the play here, but nothing big. It's two. I mean, Tua is 9-1 against the spread against the Patriots and Jets. 2-4-1 against the spread against the Bills. I think the Bills have won 11 of 12 in this matchup. Can Tua beat a good team? That's like that last year. All they did was beat up on the non-playoff teams, lose to the playoff teams. So does concern me a bit. But I like the offensive matchup here for the Dolphins against the Bills defense. That's going to take a significant step back, especially now without Johnson, Milano, and those safeties. So I like Miami small.
Yeah, I think Buffalo will just try to run the ball a ton in this one too. Like that's what Brady's been doing. I thought maybe they would unleash Dalton Kincaid more. They did play a lot of 2 tight end sets, but he wasn't a big part of the passing game in week 1. But this kind of run heavy Bills offense looks for real. And Stephon Diggs had the GQ interview. He kind of confirmed it that's why he was upset down the stretch last year, which is funny because that coincided with the Bills. I mean, they've won almost every game, and they probably should have won in the playoffs against the Chiefs. But since it's switched to a run heavier game, because I guess it kind of limits the Josh Allen mistakes too, and just highlights his best qualities. But funny enough, he did turn it over, I think, early in the Arizona game. But yeah, lean under anything over 49. You like the Dolphins, up to 2.5, I'm guessing? Or
yeah, anything under 3. I might play some money line, but nothing big. Should be a good game.
All right, we'll jump into the Sunday 6-pack. Before we do, just a reminder, our friends over at the Favorites Podcast have brought back their free $100,000 NFL Pick'em contest. It's totally free to sign up at favorites.actionnetwork.com. Just 5 picks against the spread every week, over $100,000 up for grabs, including a $40,000 first place prize. Your lowest score gets dropped after week 5. So if you haven't signed up yet, you still got time. Just visit favorites.actionnetwork.com.
Thirsty for action? Let's crack open the Sunday 6-pack.
All right, now it's time, Stuckey. Let's build our NFL Week 2 Sunday 6-pack. We're tied at 2. You hit the Vikings pick. I ended up jumping on that with some Vikes money line as well. And I hit my 3rd pick with the Jags, barely, because they almost coughed that one up. And the total, I'm first this week. I shall roll with, for the first pick of the Week 2 Sunday 6-pack and the first overall, the Cincinnati Bengals +6 at the Kansas City Chiefs. And, great work, Bengals, for ruining my and most everyone else's survivor pools in week 1. But, week 2 tends to be a dog week. It tends to be a week of backing teams that didn't look very good in week number 1. There's countless trends kind of supporting week 2 underdog, especially shorter underdogs in this kind of spot. For one, week 2 underdogs +6 or less off a week 1 loss, 70, 37, and 3, 65% against the spread since 2005. I think, Joe Burrow will be better in this one. You tend to get the Bengals' best effort when they go against the Kansas City Chiefs. That's really been the case, since this Burrow-Mahomes duel started kicking off. You go back, all 4 games that they've matched up have been decided by 3 points. The Chiefs have won 1. The Bengals have won 3. The Chiefs won the last one back in that AFC Championship. So this is a Bengals revenge spot from a couple years ago. But Burrow is 3-1 straight up and against the spread against the Chiefs, including the postseason. He's also 15-3 against the spread as a dog +3 or more, and 10-3, 77% against the spread on the road off a loss. I thought Cincinnati, they came out slow like they seem to always do. The rust was definitely palpable, but the score was still a little bit misleading. I mean, Tanner Hudson talk about ETN. Tanner Hudson fumbled the ball going into the end zone as well. There were just numerous missed opportunities. There's a pick in the end zone that they should have came down with. A Gesicki touchdown that was wiped off the board by a hair. So I think the Bengals got a little bit unlucky in this spot. And usually we talk about, Andy Reid, extra time to prepare. It's kind of scary, but he's just 11-14, 44% against the spread with the Chiefs with extra time to prepare. So I think you got a better effort from the Bengals. I still think this is a very, very good team, even without T. Higgins, Chase and Yo Savage and all those guys now they're lining up in the spots, that they were in last week. So another week of practice, I think will do well because Burrow just kind of was lost. His pocket presence just wasn't there in week one. So I think the extra week will help everybody. I think you get the best effort. I think you get a more desperate Bengals team that doesn't want to go down 0-2, and that, the Chiefs tend to bring out the best in Cincinnati. So give me the Bengals +6 at KC. I make this closer to 4.5-ish. Chiefs are still the better team, but I still have the Bengals rated pretty high.
Yeah, I'm a bit worried about this one. The week 2 is a dog week. I mean, it's one of my favorite weeks every year. It's overreaction week. But we don't have a ton of data yet to go off of, a sample size of 1. So you're still learning a lot about these teams, schematic tendencies. You can't really base a lot off one game. There are exceptions, like the Jags. We talked about this the offseason. I think they're going to go much more man heavy. They have 73% man coverage. So things like that, you can get some tells. 73% is an absurd number in week 1. But, and go back to the dog point. Since 2003, underdogs that lost week 1, 57% against the spread in week 2. Week 2 dogs in general, about 55% historically against the number. And then for what it's worth, home dogs, 58%, 60% off of a loss. So this is a week where it makes sense why underdogs have fared better. That's when I like to use trends, when they're actually intuitive. Teams that people overreact to, or, in week 1 based on maybe outlier performances, you might get some value on the underdogs in week 2. So I would look this way with the Bengals, but we've seen the Bengals start slow in the last couple of seasons with Burrow, and sometimes it doesn't click until week 3, 4, 5. When does that happen? I think the not having T. Higgins, I assume he didn't practice today, is big in this. I mean, he just adds such another element to this offense where you just can't focus all of your attention on Chase. And I'm worried about the Bengals defense, even just against the run, their cornerback group. The Chiefs should be able to run. I mean, all the Patriots did was just line up and run Stevenson right at the Bengals. DJ Reader's no longer there, and their run defense has been really bad. And then Burrow's wrist, what's going on there? I'm not quite sure. So I like the spot for the Bengals, and I expect them to play up here. And Anarumo usually has a pretty good game plan for Mahomes and makes some pretty good adjustments, but might be a game where maybe I have some money line for the upside, because it could also go sideways. I might also look in game, but definitely have my concerns for the Bengals here. I think it's going to take them some time to get things going. But for my first pick of the week 2 Sunday 6-pack and the second overall, I'm going with the Green Bay Packers +3 at home against the Indianapolis Colts. Last week I started off with Bryce Young. Let's start things off this week with Malik Willis. So right off the bat, this is an outrageous adjustment Jordan Love is really good. Is he elite of elite? We don't know that yet, right? He had a really good second half of the year last year, struggled early on. I think he's really good. He's a top 10 quarterback, but he's not elite of an elite. I made this line, and I'm low on the Colts. Before, with these teams at full strength, Packers a little extra rest coming off the international game, I made this line closer to 6. I think the look-ahead line was Packers -4.5. So let's just say it was 5. Split the difference. Now, the Packers 1 point. I played about +3.5, and I would look for, if you can get a +3.5 juice, I prefer that over 3. You're talking an adjustment of 8.5 points through the 3, and maybe through the other 3, through a 4. That is outrageous. That is the elite of elite and the worst of worst of all quarterbacks, backup. Who comes to mind? Andrew Luck,
Malik Willis,
Scott Tolzien, Aaron Rodgers to Tim Boyle. Those are like, Mahomes. Those are like, in some of his backups in the past, 7 to 8 points. This, and Jordan Love's not yet there in that stratosphere. And Malik Willis at least has some experience. Like, he's not like Tim Boyle, who's like a UConn. He threw like 13 picks and 1 touchdown at UConn. He's at least played some. 5.5 points. That's the adjustment for me. So get this closer to like a pick. So this is outrageous. Also, teams that whenever there's a team playing its backup quarterback, over the past 3 years, it's been super successful to back those teams. I think the market overreacts. Backups in their first start as an underdog, 37-30-2 against the spread. Over the past 3 seasons, 55%. I think everyone else also steps up. Right? You see this in basketball too. It's like the star factor. Everyone else knows that they need to step up. And you also have to remember that the Colts were on the field a ton last week on defense. They under 25 minutes of total time of possession. Over the last decade, teams to hold teams to under 25 minutes of possession in week 1, they are just 6-25 against the spread in their week 2 game. So fatigue early on in the season, not necessarily fully in game shape, but this is just too much of an overreaction. I expect the Halfley D to be better. I know Richardson made some great throws. He's going to do that. He's going to have some highlight runs. But what did he finish? 9 of 19. He's still inaccurate overall. And if you want to put Malik Willis, who's been really bad, but can we say the sample size isn't huge. He's at least played. He's prepped for this Colts defense twice a year, every year when he was with the Titans. And the prep ain't hard. It's Gus Bradley. What did he do again last week? Didn't blitz, covered 3, some cover 2, 80% of the time. That's it. And by the way, Colts now down their top corner, Juju Brents, who's out with an injury. This secondary is bad. So you want to talk about the best possible situation to be in. Get a little extra time to prepare. You have really good receivers. You have a good offensive line, a really good head coach, and you're going up against a defense you're familiar with, a defense that's not complex, a defense that has a horrible secondary. And I just think this is a good spot to back the Packers after their 0-1 start. The Colts coming off that heartbreaking loss against the Texans. This is a tough spot here to go on the road. Not buying the Colts defense, not fully buying Richardson. I'm okay with the backup here, especially at a field goal. I think this game, based on my numbers, should be maybe Packers +1, but I think probably right around a pick. So give me Green Bay and Malik Willis. Hopefully he doesn't have to throw a Hail Mary at the end of the game.
I give you props, man. You do this every year. I feel like this is one of my favorite episodes, the week 2, because you usually come with like the most disgusting picks. Some of them I can't even get there, but you have a pretty pristine record, I believe, on these picks. So I honestly, the thing that stops me is it's kind of what you alluded to earlier. I don't really know exactly how to judge Malik Willis because my numbers, I'm a little higher on Jordan Love than the consensus. So my quarterback rating for him, I think I saw Kerner's was like maybe 5 or something. I think I was like a half point higher. And I think I'm also a little more down on Willis. But the thing about Willis is he's been abysmal, just horrible. But he was with the Titans. And
the situation was not great.
Yeah, pre Calvin Ridley, pre-Hopkins for his starts, I believe it was. And he's actually covered. There was that Chiefs game. I think you had him. You were back in the Titans in that one, and somehow they stayed in it. But, at the same time, they have Mason Rudolph and Will Levis on the depth chart, and they were willing to trade him. Now he's prepared for this team, but he's only been on the Packers for a week. I just really don't know how to properly rate Malik Willis. And that's the only thing that.
But even if you assume the worst case scenario, he can't be 9 points.
He could be like, all right, let's say Jordan Love is like a 5. Malik Willis could be like a -2. You know what I mean? Like you could get to 7.
Maybe 7, but I made this right.
Yeah,
I made this close to 6.
You're on the right side. You're on the right side. I'm with you on the side.
He could be awful.
I'm just not betting.
The Colts could win this game. It's a spread of 3, but I got to take this.
No, and Colts could have kicker issues. You didn't even mention that. Ballard, I thought that the Colts fan base was right on with the criticism of Chris Ballard for not addressing the secondary. I think it's always great when you believe in, your young talent, and because if you hit on that, then you got young talent on rookie deals and whatnot, and that's always valuable. But I just think that he could have done more just looking at that depth chart and knowing the injury histories of some of those guys, just to fortify it a little bit more and put them in a better position. But yeah, for me, it's really the Packers are absolutely the right side of this game because even if you're making it like 7, you're still under the 3, and I'm just curious to see.
Even if there's one defense you had to pick in the NFL to face, if you're Malik Willis, wouldn't it be the Colts?
It's always the Colts for me because it's like the same way I talked about the Falcons. To me, are the offense I want to face because you're getting 100% 1-1 personnel and Cousins in the shotgun. Like it's just easy to prepare for. And the Colts defense. Like even though they have talent, at certain spots, I would pick the Colts all day. But I'm just curious to see if Malik Willis is better with good receivers because this Packer receiving core goes 4 deep. They got the 2 tight ends. Even Matty Wilson looked good at backing up Jacobs. So
better offensive line too.
Set. Yeah, better. So this could just
Buckner
be
might
a
not
bad
play for the
quarterback.
Colts. Also, Buckner dealing with a back issue.
Yeah,
is worth
so he could just be bad and not abysmal. But speaking of knowing when a guy's gonna melt down, like I had the Packers plus I bought up to the 3, but I still needed them to like hit that Hail Mary. And immediately when Malik Willis came in, I was like, he's not getting this Hail Mary off. He's just not getting it off. And sure enough, he didn't get it off. Like. Man, but the week to prepare against a defense that's easy to prepare for, you could definitely be onto something. So I'll be
trusting the floor here. Trusting the floor.
I mean, I wish they had a better back. I mean, the Packers are so weird. They either have like an all-world backup who they're about to pay like hundreds of millions of dollars, or they have like a nobody. Never anything in between. For my second pick and the third overall of the week 2 Sunday 6-pack, I'm going with the Cleveland Browns plus 3.5 at the Jacksonville Jaguars. You can probably still find a 3.5. If not, I still like the 3, but I'm fine with the juiced up 3.5 to minus 120 as well. And this is another example of a team that looked straight up horrible in week 1. The Cleveland Browns, Deshaun Watson was terrible again, but I think that this Jaguars team, just like I was backing them as a dog with the hook against Miami, I think now it's time to back Cleveland with the hook or just at the plus 3 against Jacksonville because this AFC, it's a gauntlet. There's a lot of teams that are probably borderline playoff caliber, and it's early in the year. We don't know exactly how these things are going to play out, but we do know Cleveland still has a defense, and we do know that, despite Deshaun Watson really being a shell of himself for the entirety of his tenure as a Cleveland Brown, they've won 8 of his 13 starts. He's a dog now. They're also 7-6 against the spread in his starts, and part of that is the defense, and part of that is he faced the Cowboys in week 1. And the Cowboys, you mentioned it on one of our preseason pods. The hate was kind of going too far. Mike Zimmer. An excellent defensive mind now that he doesn't have to worry about head coaching, which I just don't think was fully suited for him, especially at the end there. This is kind of like the Dan Quinn hire where it looks like it's going to work out really well for the Cowboys. They have a lot of talent defensively. Jaguars, meh. I thought they did some good things early against Miami. I thought Miami kind of shot itself in the foot at times against the Jags, but they
still finished like 400 yards of offense.
Right. They still finished with 400 yards of offense. They still gave up explosives. Their secondary graded out very poorly. And I think that's a concern because Tyson Campbell, the best cornerback, is going to miss time. The rest of that secondary is pretty mediocre to bad. And
they had no depth. We talked about that. They had no depth in the secondary. They couldn't afford
it. And that seems like it's another one of those things. It seems like it's the case every year with the Jaguars defense because they're like, I know Trevor Lawrence hasn't fully taken the next step, but Thomas the rookie looked good. So the offense should be there but the defense just always seems to be, a few pieces away, depth-wise especially. But the reason I like this matchup for Cleveland is David Njoku got hurt. But David Njoku was one of only 2 tight ends active for Cleveland. And I'm very aware of this stuff because, I do the fantasy projections every week, which, kind of includes essentially projecting a team's snap rates for the skill positions. How many times are they going to be in 2 tight end sets versus more receivers and whatnot. And Cleveland, one of the things they want to do at Watson is open up the offense and, a lot of 3 wide, 4 wide, things like that. And so you're going to get receivers. And especially with Njoku banged up, you're going to get a ton of receivers. You have Elijah Moore, you have Jerry Jeudy, you have Amari Cooper, who only caught 2 of 10 targets. I think that was very fluky, and I think that will reverse, especially with the number 1 corner for Jacksonville out. So, Cleveland, you kind of look at, Nick Chubb is out, and Watson was playing terrible. But if you kind of put it into perspective, they're 8-5 in the starts. They're an underdog. What they've been wanting to do and what they are going to do is line up with at least 3 wide in almost every play. They, even their 4th receiver is not, he played a lot last year. Tillman, they got Thrash still waiting on the bench. So, they have some promise at wide receiver, even beyond the top 3, which I think is very good. And
Tony, did they sign Tony?
I'm not counting him. I think he would be a Jalen. Shout to Tom Brady for shouting out his boy Jalen Darden, his former teammate. That was like. By the way, what did you think of Brady in his first game?
So boring. Oh my god.
Yeah, right.
So
it was like
air,
he sounded a little nervous.
Yeah.
Sounded a little nervous.
I'll give him some chance. It was his first time, so
yeah. But
for
yeah,
hundreds of millions of dollars. Come on, Tom.
He's still nowhere near Greg Olsen. But I think Greg Olsen is actually a good model for Tom to study. Because I think ultimately that's how Tom would want to sound. But going back to the Browns, I like the offensive matchup. You still got, I think, an elite defense. I just think this is a classic week 1 overreaction where these 2 teams, you probably would have the Browns power rated, at least I did, a little bit higher than the Jaguars entering the year. I don't think week 1 changed very much. The Browns just ran into a very tough Dallas Cowboy team that didn't fall off as much as thought on either side of the ball. And I'd say the biggest concern, like if this gets away, I actually don't think it's the Browns offense. I know that sounds crazy after seeing Watson, but again, the numbers, even with Watson playing poorly, the numbers back up that this Browns team can be competitive. I think the real issue would be the Browns defense did have some pretty stark home road splits last season. A lot of that tends to be noise, but that is something to kind of monitor. But I still think this number, even at 3, is way too big. I had the Browns rated higher. And again, nothing from week 1 really changed anything. And the fact that the Jaguars are down a corner, it's kind of like the Colts, it's a secondary that was already kind of shaky and just not that deep. And now you're just putting a lot of pressure on it. So you're going to make life as easy as possible for Watson. And the home road splits or not, this is still a very talented defense. This is still Jim Schwartz. And the Jaguars offense still didn't. It was solid, but it still didn't blow me away. You still have a rookie receiver. You still have Gabe Davis, who's like good but not great. An offensive line that's still So give me the Cleveland Browns here. Wouldn't be surprised if they outright win this one.
Yeah, I think this line should be a tad under a field goal. I did play the Browns as well. They would have been one of my picks if you didn't bet them. Jags, without Campbell, this is going to be a heavy man defense. Like I said, 73% week 1. So it's going to be up to Watson. He was 0 of 10 on throws, 15-plus air yards in week 1. I think there was
Kyler Murray?
One Cooper drop that was a good throw. But he's going to have opportunities here with his receivers against these corners in man coverage. Maybe you get Wills or Conklin back at tackle. I think Conklin was off to the side today. I don't think Wills practiced, but there's some upside there. And look, Watson, he's not good anymore. He just doesn't have it. But he's going to be better than he was last week. You're not going up against as good of a defense. And he didn't play for so long. He didn't even play in the preseason. He hadn't played in like a year. There was rust. He started to look a little better as the game went on. And you see there's any quarterback that doesn't play in the preseason. there's usually a dip in week 1. So you can expect a little bit of improvement. Maybe the offensive line situation gets a bit better. And on the other side of the ball, they can get pressure. And that's what you have to do against Trevor Lawrence. His numbers fall off a cliff. And they have the corners to play man and match up on the outside. So, yeah, I think it's Browns are nothing here. But for let
me give one trend just because we talk about week 2 all the time. Road teams in week 2 off double-digit losses. So big bounce back spot. 38-23 and went 62% against the spread since 2005. All right, where are you going with your second?
Yeah, for my second pick and the 4th overall of the week 2 Sunday 6-pack, I'm going with the Tennessee Titans plus 3.5 against the New York Jets. Yes, we're starting with Malik Willis, and now we're going back to last week's nemesis, Will Levis. But this is mainly a fade of the Jets. I just mentioned the Colts stat. They had the ball under 25 minutes. Teams that had fewer than 25 minutes time possession in week 1, I mean, it's stunning. 8-23 straight up, 6-25 against the spread, 19% against the spread in week 2. Fatigue, not really in game shape. And by the way, that was a Monday night game and on the West Coast, and they're hitting the road for a second straight game. Brutal spot. Just a brutal spot overall. For what it's worth, teams coming off Monday Night Football on the road and having to play on the road again. 12-21 straight up, 13-20 against the spread over the past decade. So, look, I think the Jets defense is going to be worn down here. I mean, they were on the field a ton. They got beat. They had some injuries. I think they're all going to play. In the secondary, the defensive line, it's just not the same. Without Huff, without Franklin Myers, Reddick holding out, they got bullied. They got pushed around the entire game by the 49ers. And it was noticeable. And they weren't able to get as much quick pressure on Purdy as they were last year, almost every game, which helps out the secondary. And by the way, Sauce Gardner is one of the best corners in the NFL. Apparently, they were just benching him for a little bit. The Jets PR team said he's fine. They just didn't want to have him on the field. No idea what's going on there. But Gardner, I've always been a fan of. I think he's the best corner in the NFL. But the rest of the secondary, I have questions about the safeties. Maybe the other 2 corners, maybe the Jets defense regresses from last year. We see this with defenses in the NFL. So it'd be funny at the end of the year if we say, Rodgers is good, and we say, well, if only Rodgers had a defense, after we've been saying, if only the Jets had a quarterback the best years. That would be very Jets. Rodgers looked okay, but the offensive line still needs time to come together, I think. And it's basically one guy. Just don't go off sides, by the way, because then it's a free touchdown for Rodgers. But, just focus on covering Garrett Wilson. I'm not too afraid of Allen Lazard, despite his 2 touchdowns last week. So it's a very basic offense right now. Mike Williams isn't going to give you much. So I think they'll get better as the season goes on. But I like what I saw from the Titans defense last week. I like their additions. They got a good group of cornerbacks here. Sweat looked really good, the rookie. I love the addition of Ernest Jones. That linebacker room needed him. So, I was impressed with the Titans defense last week. They didn't allow an offensive touchdown. They completely just shut down Caleb Williams. So I think the offensive line will be better for the Titans, and that Jets defensive line just isn't as scary right now. Callahan will continue to have that unit improve. So, low total here, home dog over 3. Good spot with the Jets coming off a road game on Monday Night Football where their D was on the field a ton. I think it's going to take time for Rodgers and his offense to fully gel. Give me the Titans here catching over a field goal at home.
Yeah, I lean that way as well. I thought the Jets the defense didn't look right. And
they gave up scores on 8 straight possessions.
Yeah. And it's not that it's necessarily going to be a long-term issue. I mean, maybe, defenses are known to regress more than offenses. That's just the math. But it's just going to take time, I think, because, like you said,
and the D line is not as good. Just a fact.
Yeah. What do you think of, if you like the Titans here? What do you think of taking some Saleh first coach fired? He's about 10-1 because you start out 0-2 with a loss to the Will Levis Titans. I feel like the heat really turns up, especially after.
I think he has a long leash. Think about what has happened in the past with how he handled some of the stuff, and it didn't seem like he was ever on the hot seat. So I think he has a long leash for this season. And if you're wondering how, the Titans blew a 17-0 lead last week, historically, teams that blow leads in week one, like double-digit leads, have bounced back well in week two. I think since 1990, 29-17 straight up, teams that blew double-digit lead in week one, 28-17-1 against the spread. I think if the Titans won that game, which they should have, and they would, if you play that game a million times, they win it all but one, and that was the one. This line would be 3. So happy to take over a field goal here.
All right. For my third pick, the 5th overall of the week, number 2 Sunday 6-pack, I'm going with the Rams plus 1.5 at the Cardinals. The Rams are injured and the line flip-flopped. I think they were favorites to open around the same number. And we got word Nakua was going on IR. Avila, the offensive lineman, is hurt as well. And I think they lost another lineman in that game. So a bunch of injuries for the Rams. But I still think the Rams are the better squad here. I don't think that this Cardinal team is as good as I thought it was going to be, because I still think they have a lot of issues on defense. And now an issue that I didn't quite foresee continuing is still an issue, and that's the offense with Kyler Murray throwing the ball down the football field. Now, in the past with DeAndre Hopkins there, he was better, but Marvin Harrison, I know it's just one game, but rookie.
What was going on with Harrison? He looked slow. I mean,
yeah,
maybe I was right. Greg Dortch, number 1 receiver.
Greg Dortch was. I mean, you had Greg Dortch and Ray McLeod as their team's top receivers in week 1. Great, funny times, but Greg Dortch. One of the reasons I think that he was being leaned upon is because Kyler Murray's really been struggling to get the ball down the football field. And this has been an issue now for, multiple years. And when I'm doing my analysis, I'm trying to be intuitive here. I'm saying, all right, Kyler, he lost DeAndre Hopkins. Even that last year, Hopkins was banged up. So we'll cut him a little slack here. It's still, you're taking a subset of his total passes. So you're still talking about a smaller sample than you would if you're just kind of looking at his stats in totality. But in week 1 for 7 on passes, 10 or more yards downfield. So we're not even talking about strict deep balls. We're talking about anything to the intermediate area of the field. Like essentially anytime you need a first down, got to have it, 3rd and long type of passes, 1 of 7 for 5 yards. But you go back to 2023 and okay, he was coming off an ACL, but 35 of 79, 44% on those passes, more interceptions than touchdowns. Struggled the year before as well. And so he wasn't really decent at this, going downfield since 2021, like you mentioned. And now compounding issues is that I don't know if it's just a Kyler thing or if Harrison was contributing to it, because he didn't look as good as I think we wanted him to. And you never know with the NFL, because if a guy's on the field, you just don't know what's affecting them. And sometimes you don't find out that guys played through injuries until the year is over. So I don't know what exactly is going on with him, but it's not like he just dropped a ton of passes. And I remember Jamar Chase in camp one year, I think his first year, it's like, he's dropping a bunch of passes and then he's fine. But with Harrison, it was concerning me that he just wasn't getting open and Kyler just wasn't looking at him. And I don't know if that's because Kyler has no confidence in going down the field anyway. I don't know if it's the stature and the fact that, there's some, visibility issues with a quarterback like that, or a combination of those things. But whatever it is, I don't like it because, Detroit, they really had a lot of success with Jamison Williams and their downfield guy. Amon-Ra bottled up. Fantasy owners are like, damn, man, Amon-Ra was 13 yards. Sam Laporta, number 1 tight end in fantasy, did nothing. So this Ram team, they always find a way to overperform on defense. I thought Durant looked really good. So I'm not as worried about the Rams defense against this Arizona offense. The Cardinals are going to run on them, but that's fine because I think the Rams can not only run on the Cardinals, but they can still throw on the Cardinals Nakua or not. You saw Tyler Johnson come in and get 5 catches for 79 yards on 7 targets. Demarcus Robinson, another year in the offense. They still got Atwell, who was very productive on the bench. Whittington scored a touchdown and got taken off the board. Would have been in his first game as a rookie. And Cooper Kupp is back to Cooper Kupp of old. 14 catches on 21 targets. Colby Parkinson finishes the number 7 tight end in fantasy with four catches for 47 yards, but he was efficient. And this Cardinal defense, bottom of the barrel last year, bottom of the barrel to start this year. Let Josh Allen complete 80% of his passes for 10 yards an attempt. I think they still get carved up. So I have concerns about the Rams in the run game, in the run defense aspect, but I have concerns about the Cardinals pretty much on everything else but their run offense. So I'm getting points. And then you throw in the fact that Kyler Murray's historically struggled against the Rams. He's historically struggled at home, just 5-11 against the spread as a home favorite. He struggled at home in the division, just 4-10, 29% against the spread in division home games. And Sean McVay tends to get the Rams to play up in these spots. 12-7 with 2 pushes, 63% against the spread on the road, coming off a loss. And overall, coming off a loss, 24-15-3, 62% against the spread. And then you talk about these week 2 trends. You also have those supporting the Rams. Week 2 underdogs against a favorite that lost as an underdog in week 1. So like the Cardinals, lost to the Bills. They were 6.5-point dogs in that game. So week 2 dogs that face teams like the Cardinals, 48-24, 67% against the spread in week 2 since 2005. So give me the Los Angeles Rams.
McVay has owned the Cardinals. I think he's 13-2 straight up, maybe 12-2-1 against the spread. In those stretches, it's the circle of life in the NFC West. But I will say some of those Murray against the spread stats at home, I think a lot of that has to do with Cliff. Cliff's no longer there. I can't get here with the Rams. I actually lean Cardinals here. It is a tough spot for the Rams. Like that was a week 1 Super Bowl for them. Playoff revenge. Stafford back in Detroit, and they were probably game planning to oblivion for that game against the playoff opponent they lost to. And McVay was picking apart that defense, knew everything Glenn was doing, and they were lost, even when all the injuries happened. And then to lose in overtime on the road, expending all that energy, and having all those injuries, and then having to go on the road again, that's tough.
Not far. The Cardinals have no home field. We know that.
Yeah, it's just a tough spot emotionally. And the offensive line injuries, immovable force meets yeah. What is it? Irresistible force meets a
movable object. Irresistible force meets a movable object.
The offensive line for the Rams, and then AJ Akiri is horrendous. He got beat almost every snap at left tackle when he had to come in. But I think the Cardinals' edge rushers had like a 3% pressure rate, something like that.
And they have line injuries too. Their right tackle's out.
Yeah. So, but I do think that the Rams, they put everything into that game plan. I think the Lions were just rusty on offense early, and without playing in preseason, I think this defense is still bad. And you can just run all over them. That's what I think the Cardinals will be able to do. Murray can use his legs. I don't think schematically it's going to be as easy for the Rams this week. It's a much better schooled defense, at least from the Cardinals' perspective. So, yeah, I can't get here on the spot. And these injuries for the Rams are definitely concerning. And I think that the Cardinals can just bully them. So, yeah, I disagree here. But if you want to disagree with me, for my third pick and the 6th overall of the Sunday 6-pack, I will say in full disclosure, I was originally going to go with the Broncos, who I bet, but that's moved to 2.5. So I'm going with the Carolina Panthers plus 6.5 at home against the Chargers. Yeah, I said that with a straight face. Well, not really. I kind of have a smile on my face. But, yeah, last week, completely embarrassed. They were horrendous from the start. I mean, they did nothing Nothing well. I mean, and now you lose your best defender up front, and Derek Brown. I mean, it's not good. So why am I betting the Panthers again? Number one, this is just a spot that I will almost always bet close to blindly, especially in week 2. Team off a 35-plus point loss, for what it's worth, when they're catching 4 or more points over the past 20 years. How about 48, 18, and 2 against the spread? That's 73%. Overall, those teams are 63%, 76, 45, and 6 after a 35-plus point loss, covering by over a field goal per game on average. Any underdog in that situation, any size underdog, 59, 30, and 5, over 66% against spread. Why? Why am I quoting this? Because the market generally overreacts, and they're still professional athletes. You're usually going to get the team's best effort. You're usually going to make some changes after you get beat that badly. And also, no one wants to bet you. So you're usually getting some value. I tweeted about the stat, and every single person in the world says, nope, they're the exception. I'm not betting it. And, sports books that I talk to, the Chargers are on pace to be the biggest, percentage bet side in years. I mean, look, they're plus 6.5 right now. It doesn't matter for the contest. I do think they'll hit 7 at one point. It doesn't matter. Just like the Seahawks last week was -6. It's a push. So if it was 7, I don't think it'll ever get to 7.5. But wait on this. Doesn't matter for the contest for the 6.5 that we do for the 6-pack. But wait for the 7. I think it'll flash. It might not last long. But this line, this is just a huge overreaction. That's all it is. Bryce Young looked awful. The offensive line looked better. I will say that. They couldn't get any pressure against the Saints. I think they had 2 pressures on the day. But this is a brand new offense. It's week 2. They didn't do some of the things I thought they would do with Young, but he just looked awful. I mean, there's no other way to put it. If he looks awful early, maybe you get Dalton in there in the home opener, which I wouldn't even mind. The defense isn't that talented. You lose your best player up front. Clowney looked good. And Woods, that's about all I can say. Horn didn't even have a good game. But this is just too big of an overreaction. I had this line before the year. And yes, I downgraded the Panthers. You only can downgrade a team so much if they're one data point. You gotta remember, it's one data point. We've seen plenty of times in the past where teams look good in week 1 and they don't even win another game the rest of the year. Or teams get blown out and they go on to win the Super Bowl. The Panthers are not doing that. But teams usually aren't as bad as they look in 1 week. And it's not like the Chargers looked great. What were they? Plus 20 turnover EPA. They had drives their scoring drives in the first half against the Raiders were 5 yards and 5 yards. And this is a team that just wants to run the ball. They don't really have they don't have great receivers. And they didn't really do that efficiently last week. Dobbins broke a couple runs, long runs that led to touchdown drives. But that's about all I was impressed with this offense. Going across country here, it's not a great spot. You're going to get the Panthers' best effort. Whatever they have, you're going to get changes. Nothing worked last week. Let's make some changes. Right? We lost by 37 in the week 1 opener. So I think everything works in the favor. This line before the year, close to a pick, is what I had it. You're telling me we're adjusting this by 7 points because of last week? Come on. That's ridiculous. Panthers could easily get blown out. Young could throw 3 picks again. I don't care. I have to take this on principle. Give me the Panthers. You could list a trillion against the spread trends about dogs who got blown out, but just any time we've been doing this podcast for 7 years, 6 years. Anytime a team is an underdog that lose by 35 plus, 80% of the time I'm usually on them. Get their best effort. You get some changes. Market usually overreacts because of what they just saw, and no one wants to bet that team that just got blown out. Well, I've bet in the NFL for over 20 years. I'm not afraid to bet any team. I don't care if they get blown out. I'd do it again the next week if the number was right. This number is just outrageous. Give me the Panthers.
Yeah, the number is crazy. I'm waiting to see where it ends up. I'll probably end up on the Panthers as well, for better or worse. I hate it too, but the Brown injury really is concerning, just because this Charger team, they
Their
do
run
want to
defense
run.
is bad too. The Panthers' run defense is bad.
So like that's because the way to kind of get to this is okay. The Chargers are going to be run heavy and not go crazy with explosives or anything like that. Maybe Dobbins doesn't make those explosives this week, and you kind of hang around. You stop some runs. You get maybe a 4th and 1 turnover or 2. But with Brown out, that just gets harder. But I was just really.
He's still a defensive lineman, though. I mean, he's not.
I'm just saying I was really disconcerted with. I'm disconcerted with Bryce Young though, because it was like a double whammy of.
He doesn't have any confidence. He doesn't have
any confidence. But like there was this. I'm watching him because I went back and rewatched every snap, and I don't know if I've ever felt like this in a regular season game. I felt like it in some preseason games because there's been some quarterbacks that just don't belong in the NFL, but. It just felt like when I was watching like one of my boys go and just go out and play on a field and against actual athletes and have like a couple of completions, but then just throw a couple of like bad throws. Like I gave him my best shot, but I'm not supposed to be here. So and like that's just kind of how Bryce Young, not only the throws, but his body language just kind of looked like that. Like that, he throws just an embarrassing pick on the first play of the game where it's just a straight overthrow, and he just looks so hapless. And what the real thing that concerned me about it is because, and I know this Washington defense is bad, but the Bucs didn't miss a beat without Canales. They look great. They're one of the best offenses in week 2. Very crisp. And then Carolina comes out and Canales calls, you would think that he was he's supposed to be this quarterback whisperer. You would think the fundamentals would be better. You would think but at least you would think he kind of knows the limitations of his person. I know it's his first game and struggle, but that was just disconcerting that he dials up a pass play and Young misses by that much. And that wasn't the only one. So I don't know where we're at with Young. It's now I have to go reevaluate my whole rating for him. So I still think this line is too high. I still don't think you can adjust that many points for 1 week, but it's disconcerting that we even have to have this conversation. And that's how bad Bryce Young was. But
the Panthers are toast this year. They're terrible. It is what it is, but maybe they're not as bad as it looked. Again, it's one game, but it was all concerning. And you combine it with how Young looked last year, then it becomes ultra concerning. But if I aggressively upgrade the Chargers for getting turnover luck against the Raiders, and aggressively downgrade the Panthers, and I did because I had them really improved. I can't get above 4 on this, so you got to take the Panthers here.
All right, that's gonna wrap it up for a Week 2 Sunday 6-pack. Tied at 2, so we'll see how this plays out. Stuck went with the Packers +3, the Titans +3.5, and the Carolina Panthers +6.5. I went with the Bengals +6.
Bryce Young, Will Levis,
and Malik
Willis.
You got the old Titans quarterback and the new Titans quarterback, and they might get Tannehill too. Green Bay, I heard they're talking to him. So, man, maybe Carolina should get Tannehill. But yeah, and I got the Bengals +6, the Browns +3.5. So we add Watson to that list, and the Rams +1.5.
Your quarterbacks are decent. Look at you.
Yeah, right. I mean, Watson could. It's probably fair to put Watson in the other category.
Yes, I'm saying, but you at least have.
Yeah, we still got some Stafford and some Burrow, but I mean, geez, if Burrow plays like he does early in the season, and you might have to add week 1 to 2 Burrow in that too. But I hold out hope. A big bounce back week, hopefully for us, but definitely for dogs in the NFL historically in week 2. Now it's time for our week 2 Coach's Pep Talk. For this week's Coach's Pep Talk, we're going to actor Christian Bale in the 2005 film Harsh Times, and got to dedicate this one to Cincinnati Bengals for ruining mine and so many other survivor pools.
This fucks up my plan. This is fucking bullshit. Okay? These fucking assholes, these fucking assholes! The fuck is their problem, man? This is fucking typical bullshit!
All right. Best of luck to the Bengals this week. You guys better redeem yourselves. All right. Favorite total. of the week. I went first in the 6-pack. You're up first for the total stuck. Where are you going?
Yeah, give me the 49ers, Vikings under 45.5. I think this will be a slower pace game, just like Jets 49ers. Unfortunately, for the other 49ers just scored on every single possession.
Yeah, man.
But you'll see the play clock going down. I think in that game, Shanahan was just in his bag, had time to prepare, knew Saleh's defense, and knew exactly what to do every single play. It was just an absolute clinic all across the board. But these two teams played last year. Trent Williams didn't play, in fairness. The Vikings actually won 22-17. Purdy made a couple mistakes. I trust Flores to come to cook something up here. You never know what you're going to get from him. And I think the Vikings defense is actually better. I also think the San Fran defense has improved from a coordinator perspective. I like what I saw from Sorensen, and the adjustments are going to be better than they were under Wilkes. And last year, who did all the damage? Jefferson didn't play, but Hawkinson, Addison, I think, had 2 touchdowns. McCaffrey had 2 touchdowns, and Cousins was playing. And Sam Darnold looked great last week. I think number 1 in adjusted EPA per play among all quarterbacks, but that was against the putrid Giants secondary. This is a much tougher task. I expect a good game plan from Flores. The Vikings defense is better. McCaffrey's not going to play. Mason looked great last week, but it's still a small drop off. And on the other side of the ball, look, Sam Darnold was just with Shanahan. They know him very well. They know his tendencies. They know his weaknesses. And I don't think Addison's going to play. Hawkinson's not there. It's like, all right, let's just slow down Jefferson. So I think this will be a lower scoring game, slow paced, clock running. Just got to hope that the 49ers are not uber efficient and get some red zone stops. And I think this thing goes under.
Yeah, I struggle. I don't usually play 49ers unders. And of course I play one in week 1 and where they do score like 8 straight times because it's one of the best defenses or one of the best thought to be defenses in the league. So I don't know. I'll let you roll with that one, but I do lean this way because I think there's a path for the 49ers to score at will and this game to still go under because, like you said, this Vikings offense, it's not the Giants this week. Back to reality goes Sam Darnold. And you still have Flores on the other side, and that did give the Niners and Purdy some problems last season in this same matchup. But don't sleep on my boy, Jalen Nailor, man. When you mentioned the Vikes offense, I really like him. He's going to get some more playing time. I think he's going to be their number 3 receiver.
Yeah, he's good. He's great as a 3, but they're going to miss. I don't think Addison's playing. And
as a 2, it's not ideal. Johnny Munt season, I guess. But I can see a path for this to go under even if the Niners put up a point total in the 30s. The Vikings could still lay an egg. It's still Sam Darnold, so I don't mind this one. I'm going to a kind of a weird one. We hit the the Pittsburgh Atlanta total because Cousins predictably just couldn't move and Pittsburgh just nothing but field goals. Then Boswell punting and field goaling and whatnot. But this one, I'm going maybe a little surprising to some people. Detroit, Tampa Bay under 51.5. I think this is the highest total on the board. And this is one, it's a numbers play in terms of, when you look at these high totals, they tend not to cash to the over because they tend to be overrated. I mentioned it already. Unders at 49 plus are 79, 49, and 162% since 2021, 40 and 16 since 2022, 71%. And both of these teams are in the bottom 4 in situation neutral pace. The Bucs 33.4 seconds between plays, according to FTN. The Lions dead last at 34.8. And first half pace, Detroit 27th, Tampa Bay 31st. So you're going to get a slow pace. And I think the thing that would scare people, and it is a concern, is Tampa Bay has no secondary now. Winfield went down. 3 of their 4 active corners went down last week. 1 is on IR. Another one, I think, is in a concussion protocol. So the secondary is going to be a problem. But what I like about this, for Tampa Bay specifically in this matchup, is that Todd Bowles, usually an aggressive defense, the secondary is so injured that I just think you have to play less aggressive at times and kind of sit back, play off coverage. And remember, the Lions only have like 2 receivers. They haven't really found their true X. Khalif Raymond ran around an 85% of the dropbacks as the number 3, but they would prefer not to do that. So the Lions are still going to be kind of a run first team. They got into trouble when they started throwing it a little too much with Goff. But when they got back to the run, things settled down. So I think they still run the ball here. Tampa Bay can't run, but I don't think Tampa Bay has as much success as they had against Washington, who might be the worst defense in the league. So I think what you're going to get is Baker Mayfield getting the ball out quick. I think you're going to get the Lions running the ball. So even if you get some scores, and these defenses are both vulnerable, no question about it, I think you'll still get some long drives. And when you have long drives and slower pace, that's one of the reasons why these high totals tend to go under. So that's how I'm kind of looking at this one. So give me the under 51.5. Tampa and Detroit. It's worth mentioning these teams did play. Granted, it was outdoors last season, but Baker Mayfield probably had, and the Bucs probably had their worst offensive output of the season in that game. They scored 6 points against that Lions defense that was worse than it is this year. And they only gave up 20. So it was a 20-6 game. The Bucs put up 251 yards of total offense. The Lions got 380, but only 40 on the ground, interestingly enough. So Tampa Bay does have some juice against the run, but overall, I just think this number's a little too high. So give me 51.5 under Lions Bucs.
Yeah, I don't mind going under now that it's over a key of 51, but I am a little concerned about the Bucs secondary. The Lions kind of shook off the rust and cobwebs last week after Goff didn't play in the preseason. Now you're playing a team with, I already had questions about their secondary. Now you have a cluster injury. In fact, you already have a great offensive line. So it's it could be huge bounce back days for who'd you mention earlier, Laporta, St. Brown.
But that's I'm okay with that because that's slow pace underneath guys. Because the thing about Tampa Bay is they're usually blitzing a ton. I'm happy to let the Lions pick up 5-7 yards. You go up like 24-3 at halftime and just kind of run out.
Yeah, maybe Bowles sits back more cover 2, doesn't blitz as much, knowing the offensive line, knowing the situation, and says we're not going to give up explosives. So that would definitely work in your favor. So I don't mind this one, but no strong opinion.
Yeah, and just before we get away from totals, just one kind of trend. So we kind of thought that the league average for scoring would go up a little bit, and it looks like it did. The average score is about 22.9 in week. It's just 1 week, and it tends to be a little higher in week 1 just because, it's the weather early in the year, I should say. But overall, even with some shaky offense, it was still 22.9. So that's the reason I'm not looking to some of these lower totals because, some of these key numbers, like you got Denver, Pittsburgh 36. It's like you lean under that one, but like now you're pushing it, especially with the league average up to 23 a game. Same thing in like the Tennessee Jet game. It's like you kind of lean under there, but it's like 40 and a half. You're kind of pushing it. So I'm it's in a wait and see mode on some of these lower totals because I think that's where we're going to get squeezed a little more. Whereas, with these higher totals, they tend to just be a little more inflated than they should. I think you have a little more wiggle room and a few more outs with some of those. So that's how I'm kind of looking at it.
Same. I'm going to be a little more hesitant on totals early in the season. New kickoff rule too, and seeing, give it a couple weeks to see the true rules of emphasis in the NFL. Apparently, the hip drop tackle is not a thing, and they just decide when they want to start enforcing the illegal formation randomly in certain games. I think offensive linemen had it called, like Ronnie Stanley had it 4 times and a half. Then there was like the next 15 games, offensive linemen only had it called on them like 5 times. But I saw a number of hip drop tackles, some that led to injuries. I think Jennings for 49ers got hurt on one. That was a clear one. And one last note on the flying games, just bet the lines. I mean, all the lines do is cover 36-16 against the spread the past 4 years. If you include one game this year, 69.2%. They're even covering as 5.5 point favorites where they closed that in overtime. That's the best 4-year stretch of any team. Better than the Patriots team. They passed the Patriots, were just stellar against the spread since the wild card era in 1990. Amazing.
And that is a good segue into our favorite teaser of the week. Both didn't come through with that Bengals upset last week, but I think we're both going the same way. So talk to me about the teaser for this week.
Yeah, we'll keep it simple this week. If I had a bet one right now, Broncos came down to 2.5, total of 36.5. So Broncos, great teaser piece to get up to 8.5. And then if you can get the Giants, you get the Giants over a touchdown. That's one that I would look at. And then one that we also both like is the Texans and the
Lions.
The Lions, who we just talked about. Now, this is something easy you can do. This isn't my typical teaser. So my official recommendation, I guess, will be the Broncos, Giants. But I like this one too. But teaser's getting more expensive. You can still find some minus 120s out there. There's unicorn one-off accounts that still have better than that. But mainly it's like minus 130. Still plus EV if you're doing true Wong teasers, teasing through 3 and 7 lower total, but barely. But for this case, if you're teasing the Texans and the Lions down to around a pick, moneyline parlay is probably going to pay better. You can get like minus 122 out there. So always compare those prices. If you're teasing 2 favorites down that are around a touchdown, look to see what the moneyline parlay pays out because it's the same thing. And you also have you have more value because you win by 1, then you're still winning. So always compare those two if you're teasing 2 favorites down. But we just talked about the Lions. I think their offense should hum here. I don't think the Bucs offense is as good as it looked last week. Cluster injuries for Tampa in the secondary, I think will be too much to overcome. And then, I really like the Texans to get it done at home on Sunday night. I mean, Caleb Williams looked lost. 11 quarterbacks have had 25-plus pass attempts and fewer than 100 pass yards in their first career start. I mean, you're talking about like DeVito, Ritter, Hundley. It's bad. How did those quarterbacks do in their second start? Bad. So I think it's going to take some time. Odunze hurt. Was Keenan banged up a little bit too? He was
banged up, but that's Keenan. But I do think he suits up. It seems like he made it.
He'll probably play. But this Bears offense has issues. And Williams, it's gonna take some time. And on the other side, the Bears can't get pressure. It's like one guy on the defensive line. So good luck trying to defend Stroud and those receivers. And the other big development for the Texans, which I was very happy to see as someone who has a Texans Super Bowl future, the run game. They found a run game. And they found that balance. The run game looked fantastic last week against the Colts. They were churning yards. We haven't seen that from the Texans. Usually it's just all on Stroud. So I think that's a nice development for Houston's offense. So, my official recommendation, I'll go Broncos, Giants for where the lines are now with lower totals. And then we both agree on the Texans and Lions. We'll call it a moneyline parlay, but same thing for the teasers segment. Moneyline parlay. Cheaper.
Yeah. And Detroit is 14-6 against the spread as a favorite since 2021. Kind of, as you alluded to, they're 36-16 overall. So if you tease it down, you have gotten one more extra win, so you'd be 15-5, 75% against the spread with the Lions leg since 2021, teasing them down 6 points. And I'm curious, real quick, on your thoughts on Houston, Chicago. So I like Houston in this game, as do you. The line is 6 at most books. Now it's come down a little bit. How would you attack this? Because I like the Texans, but 6 is like the money line for that is a little hefty. But I also thought about getting like an alt line somewhere in between at 2.5, 3 or something like that. But that they tend to be inflated too. So like, how would you just take the Texans on the spread? Would you just take play to win with the money line? Because I want to bet the Texans somehow individually of the lines as well. But I'm kind of going back and forth on how I really want to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're a good money line parlay piece. Under 6, I would lay it with them, but around 6 is close to where I have it. So it would probably it's probably a pass for me. You have to figure that one out on your own, brother. I can't help you.
Yeah, man. It's tough because I this is a team I want to invest in every week. Last week, luckily, I took the money line for the Texans because they always seem to be in these weird games with like 2-point conversions gone awry and right? Like kickers getting hurt, and the kicker was excellent last game, but of course somehow it's like a 9-point game, and then the Colts make it on 4th down, and it's like always something with them. So yeah, I might just lay the money line into in addition to teasing them down. But we'll see where the line ends up. But I'll have a write up on that. But just for what it's worth, CJ Stroud is now 6-2 career at home, and he's 10-4 in his last 14 starts after losing the first 2 overall. So I do expect the Texans to win this game. It's just how much? Because I do make it a little about 6.5. So I don't know if I want to weigh the 6. But Broncos, Giants, Lions, Texans for the teaser. Now it's time for our Underdog money line parlay. Where are you going with your money line dog for week 2?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Denver Broncos, who would have been my 3rd pick, but the line has dropped down. And this is a classic Fade Tomlin spot. Not a rah-rah spot. They pulled off an upset in week 1. Now they're going to play an 0-1 Denver team, 2nd straight road game. You're going to elevation, by the way, early in the season. Could be an issue. Broncos 20-4 straight up. 14-6-4 against the spread in their home opener since 2000. As a home dog, they're also 29-19 against the spread over that span. Peyton off a loss is a god. 55-33-1 against the spread. 62.5% covering by a field goal per game. 1 win. If he gets 1 win, if he wins this game or covers this game, but basically got to win now, he would tie Belichick for the most profitable coach in the history of the NFL after a loss. He's also 50-34-2 against the spread as a dog. 4th or 3rd most profitable over the past 20 years, trailing only Tomlin among actives. When Tomlin opens -3 or higher on the road, 21-35-2 against the spread, 38%. Usually aren't rah-rah spots. I did like the Steelers used much more play action, but the offense was in a phone booth. I mean, they hit a couple shots to Pickens. Otherwise, it was just throwing to the flats, and the middle of the field was just completely abandoned. Last week, they had the Chargers and the Steelers were the voodoo teams last week in turnovers. I think they were close to +20 turnover EPA as well. They had their scoring drives last week, 18-23, 24-11, 45-46. Didn't score a touchdown. I put Surtain on Pickens. Who else you throwing to with Fields? I think that the Steelers defense looked great last week. They dominated that game because Cousins looked hurt. Anytime it was a ridiculous game plan. They didn't use any play action. They were telegraphing what they were going to do. It was the most predictable. It was very disappointing from the Falcons. So I think that was all about just Watt destroying that game, turnover luck, but I wasn't overly impressed with the Steelers overall. The Broncos was a tough spot for Bo Nix going into Seattle against a McDonald defense. It won't be easy against the Steelers D, but he has a start under his belt. It'll be his 2nd home game. And I think Peyton a little more comfortable with what he wants to do with him. And this game will just be played in 2 phone booths. The total's 36. Give me the underdog at home money line. Like a ton of variance in this game. It's like who's going to make a turnover win? That key turnover loses the game. Probably is what this comes down to. So happy to take the Broncos.
I mean, you could have just said fade Justin Fields as a favorite. That would probably been enough, man. Like Justin Fields is a road favorite. Right. Yeah, it's pretty much all you got. I'm going with the New York Football Giants +105 at the Washington Commanders. Giants historically own the Commanders. It doesn't really make much sense because the Giants tend to stink, and they somehow still own the Commanders no matter what. Commanders have no real home field advantage. This is still two, I think, pretty evenly matched teams, and without the home field advantage, wouldn't be surprised if the Giants get it done here, especially with, for whatever reason, Daniel Jones. His home road splits are just outrageous now, and we're now 5 and change seasons into his career. 6.9 yards an attempt, 35 touchdowns, 14 picks on the road. At home, 5.8 yards an attempt, 27 touchdowns, 28 picks. So from 35 and 14 to a negative touchdown interception ratio when he goes to East Rutherford. So yeah, now get him out of there. Go to Washington. Let their fans get mad if their team is struggling. Dable, very good, 18 and 10 against the spread as a dog. So I think the Giants, they're gonna have to win a game or two this year. I don't think they're very good, but this could be when they snatch. I think that as bad as the Giants defense looked and is, like, the Giants at least have talent. They have a pass. They should have a pass rush. The Commanders, Bobby Wagner's there. He was missing tackles. I don't have much nice to say about their defense at all. So give me Giants.
Yeah, this is. I said this all season long. These two teams are the same. They're mirrors of each other. I mean, Allen and Payne are pretty good for.
But they're on the interior. Yeah.
But like, you have good pieces on the defensive line. Both secondaries are horrendous. Both teams have awful offensive line situations, questions at receiver, at quarterback, who, mobile quarterbacks who can't really throw. Washington even has the Giants' old offensive line coach who could never figure it out. So yeah, taking the dog here, I think, makes sense. This should be just a weird game. I hope I don't have to watch much of it. And Cliff, you're fading Cliff. I can't believe you backed Cliff last week. How many times is Daniels going to throw short of the sticks on third down? I think he averaged 8 yards short last week with that horizontal air raid. So yeah, two bad teams, equally matched, divisional game, not much home field. Yeah, agree here. So Giants and Broncos.
Plus 351 would be the parlay odds. Broncos plus 120, Giants plus 105. Survivor pool pick of the week. Just like I think you did a couple years ago. I bowed out in week 1, so I'm just going to let you roll. You went with Seattle in week 1. Who are you going with for week 2?
Yeah, I always balance. Look, I'm going to do it as I'm doing with Circa. So I got to get through 20 weeks, and it's like 15,000 entries. So that's why I went with Seattle, not Cincy, in week 1. But I do balance, and I have to map out like who I'm saving for Christmas and Thanksgiving. It's a unique schedule. So I get back to my first point. I have to balance out who I'm going to use. Like, if I want to be safe and just advance, or I want to like try and game theory a little more and be a little risky. And I think it's a balance. Some weeks you just got to survive. Some weeks, like last week, I wanted to be a little more risky and go against the most popular pick. This week, I'm going with the Ravens. Week 2 is a tough week for me. I feel confident in the Ravens. With Harbaugh extra time to prepare. Last year, after Ravens off a loss, they were 4-0 straight up against spread. They won by an average of 17.5 points per game. Raiders coming across the country. They look bad. So I think the Ravens are the safest pick, probably the most popular. Maybe the Panthers can surprise for me. I don't want to bet the Chargers. And like, I'm saving the Texans actually for the Ravens on Christmas. I'm saving the Chiefs. Teams like the Lions who play on Thanksgiving. So yeah, I'm going safe this week. I'm going with the Ravens, who I trust to win at home. Against a bad Raiders team. I still can't believe Antonio Pierce's 4th down decisions in that game. That punt, one of the worst things I've ever seen in my life. Ravens, by the way, I'll just finish up my thoughts on that game. Would lean that way. Line's about right, though. Lean the under. Raiders are always going to be an under team to me. They just want to take away explosives. They'll usually have a good defensive game plan. offense is bad, very conservative. Minshew 4.6 average depth of target last year, lowest among all quarterbacks. Last year with the Colts, it was like close to 8. They want to run the ball a lot. They can't run it. And we'll see how much damage Wilkins and Crosby can do against this Ravens offensive line. There's still some questions outside of Stanley and Linderbaum. I think they got a little better as the game went on in Kansas City. So we'll see, week 2, would expect a little bit of improvement. You got to get Malik Harrison off the field. The guy has to get off the field. He was horrendous against the Chiefs. Only 2 linebackers. You got to play Simpson. Van Noy's going to be out. You just got to play Simpson along with Roquan as much as possible. Harrison is washed. Not washed. He's not good. And for what it's worth, Minshew 1-15 straight up in his past 16 starts as an underdog. Although I believe the one win was in Baltimore with the Colts when Matt Gay had I think he made 5 50-plus yard field goals. I think, by the way, field goal kickers last week, I think they went 22 of 23 from 50-plus, and the one miss was Tucker. And Tucker, I think, is one of his last 6 from 50-plus. Father time's undefeated. Tucker's still one of the best kickers in the NFL, but he just doesn't have that same reliable length. Just something to keep in mind. He's just not as good from a power kicking perspective. You know who is Aubrey, who made a 66-yarder in Cleveland, which is insane. That it was called off. How do you not call a timeout there, by the way? They got to delay a game. Classic McCarthy finish to the half. And then he was going to kick a 71-yarder, which is so dumb. I mean, it would have been fun to see. But 71, when you're winning, you have a guy back there returning it. Only bad things can happen. You got offensive linemen trying to make tackles. Although it would have been fun to see. I always laugh about Lane Kiffin when he was with the Raiders right before he got fired. He tried a 76-yarder at the end of the first half with Janikowski into the wind. 76. It didn't even get to the goal line. One of the funniest kicks I've ever seen. But, yeah, I like the Ravens. Line's about right. Would have leaned under, but I think it's come down to the right. Fun tight end game. You like tight ends? Watch Raiders, Ravens. Ravens went with 12 personnel over 50% of the time.
Yeah.
Likely, Andrews.
Andrews, 75% route rate. Isaiah Likely, 69% right behind him. So
Raiders use a
Likely
bunch
has
of
a chance
tight
to
ends.
outproduce him now. If that holds, Likely has a chance to outproduce Andrews this year.
You even got
Andrews is out of the game on some key snaps, oddly enough.
Yeah. And then Raiders are going to use Mayer
and
Bowers.
Yeah.
What's his name even got some snaps?
Harrison B.
Bryant?
Harry B.
I think Kohler got some snaps for the Ravens too. You like tight ends. This is your game. But yeah, the Ravens are just a better version of the Raiders across the board.
All right. Speaking of Cowboys, that's a good segue to best of the rest. The games we did not talk about in any other segment. We'll start with the Saints at the Cowboys. Cowboys favorites by 6.5. The total was 46. And, when it comes to Mike McCarthy attempted 71-yard field goals, I think it's a good thing because it's just preparing Dallas. The criticism is they're a bad playoff team, but in the playoffs, Mike McCarthy is going to settle for a field goal when he should be going for it at some point. So, just kind of getting his kicker ready now. But in all seriousness, this is actually a Cowboys spot trend-wise. Dak favored by 6 or more, 31-12 against the spread, 72%. Derek Carr on the road off a win, 11-24, 31% against the spread. And the Cowboys at home since 2021, 17-8, 68% against the spread. Anything to add?
Yeah, Dak great as a favorite. Close to 60%. 27-13 since 2021. And the reason for that, it's not all Dak. It's that the Cowboys are great front runners. Talked about this all offseason because then their defense can pin its ears back. That's what happened against Cleveland. You get pressured, you can force turnovers, and it's coming against the opposing offense. So that's why the Cowboys are such good favorites against inferior teams. This, to me, comes down to will Carr be pressured?
Yes.
Saints offensive line graded out elite last week, but they were playing the Panthers, right? How much of that was the Panthers? And Carr's pressure numbers were bad last week. I saw some tweets about that. He was pressured twice. So the sample size is 2 throws for what it's worth. But historically, his numbers fall off a cliff when he's pressured. That's the key. and the Panthers weren't able to do it. Everyone on the Saints offensive line graded out elite. It's pretty funny. An offensive line that I had is one of the worst in the NFL. Still might be the case, but maybe they're improved. I did like what I saw from the Saints offense. Talked about an upgraded offensive coordinator. 28% more play action than last year. 38% more pre-snap motion. They were one of the two. They were at the bottom of the barrel in both categories, them and the Panthers last year. So some good signs there. But, historically, with Dak and this Cowboys defense and the ability to generate pressure, they can get a lead. This is a good spot for the Cowboys. Dak and CD against man coverage with Lattimore potentially not playing. Saints run a lot of too high man, heavy man. That's not a recipe for slowing down this Cowboys team. Ferguson, their tight end, will be out. It's decent loss, but would lean Cowboys, but I'm close to the number. Want to see the Saints offensive line because then the Saints, I might take this offense way more serious if their offensive line can hold up here.
Yeah, then it'd be a completely different unit because they got, they got a decent skill group. I like with Shaheed. I like Shaheed.
And the play calling's gonna be better when healthy.
Yeah, Carr is. Yeah, he's mediocre. I mean, he's good. He can be solid when he gets pressure. I don't like his style of quarterback because it's like the minute he doesn't run and the minute there's pressure and which is gonna happen in key games, it goes belly up. But they can maximize this if the offensive line is as good as it was last week. So we'll see. And let's finish it up. The Seahawks at the Patriots. Patriots catching 3.5 at home. The total is 38. You're kind of Seahawks high on the Seahawks this year. So what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah. By the way, one note for Giants Commanders: underdog in winless teams in week 2. For what it's worth, 50, 25, and 3, 67% since 2003. Seahawks Patriots. This is the one low total that I would play. I think there's a little bit of value still. It is scary, but I just don't see how this game is not a rock fight. So when the Seahawks have the ball, I think the Patriots' defensive front can cause some issues. The Seahawks' offensive line on the right side specifically is a mess. I mean, Stone Forsythe might start the right tackle. It looks like because Fant's going to be out. They're already missing their starter. Bradford's a mess at right guard. That's problematic, that offensive line on the road. If Kenneth Walker doesn't play either, keep an eye on his status. I really like this under. It's a huge drop-off from him to Charbonnet. You saw that in the game last week. The Seahawks couldn't run it late. When Walker was in there, he basically blew that game open. He was running all over the Broncos. So the Seahawks are going to sign Dwayne Brown. I don't know what they're going to do about their offensive line situation. How old is Dwayne Brown? He's got to be like 38. 39. I feel like if we're going to be doing this podcast in 3 years talking about is the Seahawks considering signing Dwayne Brown?
Because they just gave up 4 more safeties.
It's hard for me to see the Seahawks offense having a ton of success because some of the things that the Patriots can do with their corners. So they have 3 good corners. They can match up with the Seahawks receivers. They can bring pressure, blitz, play man. That's really when Geno starts to get in trouble. So I think it's a good matchup there. But for what it's worth, I did like what I saw from Ryan Grubb in his first game. He was getting just schematically the run game. He's getting Walker into light boxes, really ramped up pre-snap motion. I think there's a lot of positives to take away from that game after the nightmare start because they were starting on the 1 every possession. It felt like. Hey,
Sam Darnold starts on the 1 and he goes right down the field. So
yeah, I did not like the one thing I didn't like from Grubb was he was like starting in shotgun, and running it in shotgun at the 1. Don't do that.
Geno Smith's offense is in general just not good. Like, because I remember even like when he gets down there, like I remember that game against Detroit where he took like a 40-yard sack down to like the 5. Like he's just not good in those tight spaces. Just a disaster. Yeah, just a disaster. But
then the other side of the ball, it's McDonald. It's going to have a good game plan here. I liked what I saw from the Seattle defense. The Patriots, what do they want to do? They just want to line up, run it, shorten the game, and try to win it with their defense. Like they're an under bettor's dream the way that they want to play. And their offensive line is still a mess. They're not going to be able to just line up and run it as successful as they did against the Bengals, who are weaker in that area than the Seahawks. And then the good thing is with Brissett, he's just a pro's pro. He's not going to make mistakes. I think top 5 all time in interception rate among qualified quarterbacks. It's going to make the safe throws, which is good because with a total this low, you can't afford like a pick 6, a bad pick in your own territory. So the Patriots is going to lean on the run game, so I don't think it's going to have a ton of success. Seahawks have a good game plan. This game should be ugly. 3.5. Would be Patriots or nothing, but it would be Patriots or nothing at 3.5, just based on the way I see the game playing out and it being super low scoring. So like just having the hook in your pocket, if you had like you're doing like a pick'em contest, but might play this under. But like I said before, I'm a little hesitant on some unders early in the season because of some of the new rules and just gathering data and things.
Just
like
remember
that.
to factor in the 4 points the Seahawks give up in safeties. Into your calculation.
They almost got a third one. Then they started at the 1 again. I was like, if they got, so I was so mad because I fortunately got 5 minus 5.5. And then for whatever reason, I got to get this all in check. McDonald didn't go for 2 late. So I was worried, but then part of me was rooting for everyone to cover all the numbers. That's what I do first and foremost. But he didn't go for 2 to go up 14. But if he didn't get it, and then the Broncos scored a touchdown, then I lose my 5.5 too. Stefanski didn't go for 2 to cut an 18-point game to 16 late. Who else had complete coaching mock? Dan Quinn didn't cut it to 8 late in the fourth quarter. They kicked the extra point to go down 9. What? In the second half? That made no sense. And another thing that every coach does this, but Shanahan didn't do this in the second half. And by the way, I thought Shanahan might have changed. 4th and 1 late. He had his offense on, and there was a timeout, and then he kicked the field goal. But going for 2 to go up 17 in the second half, more teams should do that. So you're up.
Yeah, make it a 3-possession game.
Yeah, you're up 9. You score a touchdown. Go for 2. You rarely see it, but it's plus EV decision. But that's it for me. That's all I got.
That's a wrap for us then. Thanks for listening. You can hear more of me every week with my guy, Sean Kerner, talking fantasy, DFS player projections, all that good stuff on the Fantasy Flex podcast. And Stuck, of course, talking college football over on the Big Bets on Campus podcast. Also, be sure to check out the Big Bets on Campus YouTube channel. You can find Stuck on X at Stucky2. I'm at Chris Raybon. We're at those same handles on the free, award-winning Action Network app. Until next time, let's get this shmoney.